You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Alex. Alex, how we doing?
I am great. Appreciate you guys holding down the fort while I was having to tend to the JOB there the last couple of weeks. Texas had its annual snowstorm, so that kind of threw a wrench in the plans to be here last week. But we made it through. Everybody, we're good. I'm good, at least. No major things done with the house, so we've made it through the freeze. Hopefully, we're done with those. I'm told it's going to be 70 here this weekend, which is going to be fantastic.
Only 70.
Just good for the tea time I've got on February 1st. You know, or February 2nd, I should say. But yeah, we're good. I was getting some memories from Facebook from 13 years ago, where I was in New Orleans getting ready for the Super Bowl 47. And it was quite a time down there. It was my first time in New Orleans. It was my first time covering a Super Bowl. I got to do some cool things. I shared a cab at the memory that came up this morning was the first day I was there, I shared a cab with a pretty popular Denver radio host, who I think still is working there. I don't think he's with the same radio station. I met Susie Colbert. That was pretty cool. And talked to her for a little bit. And we went to the casino. And then we still had plenty of time that day was still young. It was a good time. We were staying at the same hotel as the Jim Harbaugh led 49ers that were getting ready to go up against the John Harbaugh led Baltimore Ravens. You remember that Super Bowl? Do you remember what was most memorable about that Super Bowl?
The fact that the lights went out.
The power went out in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. If only that one had been played in Atlanta, right? And then we could say that was the night the night the lights went.
In Georgia.
Yep, like that could be a whole thing there, right? But
yeah, that was fun. That was a fun time. I remember that fondly. So yeah, but what's crazy is 13 years ago, this was Super Bowl week. As we were getting ready for it, and we still have 2 weeks before we get to the Super Bowl as the NFL decides to dominate more of our lives and take up more of the calendar.
Right. So yeah, certainly some of the changes there on the scheduling and all of that has contributed to that. But there was some football played this past week, and we do now have our teams in the Super Bowl here to see how that one's going to square off, and do we see destiny made type of thing. And certainly a repeat from a Super Bowl from a few years back, and the storylines aren't quite as compelling this time around, right? Like from the standpoint that very much so it was the Andy Reid Bowl or it was the Kelsey Bowl, all of those things kind of playing out there. So, but very interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, and look, there's enough media, there's enough individual stories. We'll latch on to whatever these stories are. Redemption for Jalen Hurts, right? Who didn't know if he was going to get back to this point. Obviously, the three-peat that Kansas City is chasing. That's a little rough for me as a Broncos fan, right? The Broncos had a chance to three-peat and well, it didn't happen. So it is there will be plenty of storylines that will come out over the next 2 weeks. And then the best part is all those storylines go away once they, tee the ball up and put it in play.
That's true, right? And we'll get we'll certainly go into this a lot more next week, and we'll get talking about some of the props kind of game and all of that we always have fun with and get going on there. So a couple of other things kind of rocking and rolling through there. Any news notes that you want to hit up that you want to cover?
I do have a question for you that we didn't discuss ahead of time, but I've seen a lot of this going around on social media, and it's a lot of this sympathy, maybe is the right word, empathy or sympathy for Josh Allen, and the fact that he is this all-world quarterback, right? That is playing exceptionally well, willing his team, which I think if you and I, everybody I talked to at the beginning of the year was like, who's Josh Allen going to throw the football to? Like, how is this Buffalo offense going to work now that they've shipped Stephon Diggs out? We didn't think Mac Hollins was going to be a thing, right? We certainly didn't think that. Now I'm drawing a blank on his name, and this is embarrassing. That James Cook was going to be what James Cook was, right? We didn't think that he was going to be just basically a touchdown a game running back. But Josh Allen does all of this, gets to the AFC Championship game, and then runs into what has become his roadblock. This feels like the new Allen and Mahomes feels like Manning and Brady, right? The only problem was Manning got a couple times over on Brady in those AFC Championship games where Allen hasn't yet. Now, both of them are still young, right? They've still got plenty of football in front of them if they stay healthy. Do you feel sad for Josh Allen that he can't get past Patrick Mahomes?
No, I really don't, right? Yeah, and it's one of those that we see this happen in really any sport, that it takes ascending that guy or that team to get there, right? Like to be crowned that guy, you got to beat that guy, right? And so certainly hasn't done it, right? And so interestingly enough, right, you look across the other teams in the AFC, like just about everybody else has had a very difficult time getting that done as well, right? Like this is Mahomes' 7th consecutive AFC Championship game that he played in.
Yeah.
This
I think every year he's been in the league, basically, right?
Right. This is his 5th appearance in the Super Bowl, and he hadn't been around very long, right? Like this isn't a seasoned, well, he's seasoned, but this isn't a guy that's limping into kind of the last stages of his career, and the longevity and being consistently good for long enough has put it there, right? Like this is this is reminiscence of Brady, right? Like that's and before that, the guy that seemingly managed to get a team into the Super Bowl throughout his career was John Elway, right? Just consistently kind of getting there. But it does seemingly take, beating that guy to overcome that and get there, right? Like, Mahomes, in order to get to the Super Bowl, had to get through Brady. And it's going to take Allen doing something similar.
And maybe the sympathy comes in the way in which he has fallen to Mahomes in those games, right? Mm-hmm. You can point to that overtime game where he didn't even get to touch the football. That changed the rule, right? That changed the rule in the NFL. Like that's how consequential that game was. And maybe there was, you can point to every play of every game, especially in a game like this where everything is so heightened in a conference championship game. And sure, maybe one or two calls didn't go the way that Buffalo would have needed in order to change the outcome of that game. I'm a firm believer that while it does stink that sometimes you don't get things to go your way, sometimes you got to make things go your way, right? Like I think that's kind of the mindset, and I think that's probably the mindset of a lot of NFL players. It's not the mindset of a lot of NFL fan bases, which is why they're fans and not players. But I think you have to make things go your way, and not leave it up to chance, not leave it up to somebody else holding your fate in their hands. Get the extra yard. Get the yard. Don't just get to the yard marker. Get past it. Leave no doubt. Right. Like, so I think that there's a lot of things. I think there is a case to be made about the sympathy for Josh Allen because, man, it has been disappointing the way in which he's lost these AFC Championship games.
Right.
And if I'm being honest, I think it would have been cool to have a Philly Buffalo Super Bowl. I wasn't too keen on a Washington Buffalo Super Bowl. I felt like 1992 would have called, and we would have all needed to have answered that phone call.
Right. But Jaden Daniels was, that's a very compelling storyline there.
That is, and he will be a compelling storyline for many, many years. I think. I think we are so fortunate to be football fans in this era of football, because we are seeing just some absolute dudes that we are fortunate that they picked up a pigskin back in their youth and have decided to share their talents with us, because man, is it fun.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like that's the I'm not gonna lie, the rematch though of a Super Bowl from a few years ago does not bring that same excitement as yeah.
It doesn't, but you know what? But you know what's gonna happen anyway? You're gonna watch the damn game. Like
that's true.
You're gonna watch the damn game, because what else are you gonna be doing on February 9th?
Right, exactly. So
watching the damn football game, enjoying probably for you, I'm assuming a brisket will have been prepared. You're enjoying the company of your family or some friends, a few beverages, watching commercials. It's just the reality of it. It could have been the two least likable teams, and we're still gonna watch.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true, right? And interestingly enough, right? So kind of shifting gears, looking at the other side of the conferences there. And real quick before we get there, Jamie chiming in saying, "Sup, guys." How much, Jamie? You know how we doing it. It's a Tuesday. We talking some foosball. Appreciate you chiming in. So on the the interesting thing, right? And I've seen a number of people out there voicing their dismay over the tush of the push, or the brotherly shove, or the whatever that you want to call it. And I think Washington gave us some interesting talking points to that as well. And real quick, Binkin also chiming in saying, "Sup, fellas." Much, Binkin. You know how we doing it. It's a Tuesday. Appreciate you chiming in here. So yeah, I did find it very interesting, right? Washington's trying to answer the tush push there as they got down into that later part of that, where at that point, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, just jump over the line. I did enjoy that. I thought that was a very hilarious sequence. And wouldn't you know it, that it's a hockey league that has to deliver the funniest referee message of all time.
Right.
Like father like son there. But yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, why not? What do you have to lose? Just keep jumping it and see if you can't disrupt it.
Right.
Oh, half the distance? Shoot.
We moved the ball 6 inches. Like,
okay.
And even when they came through and go, if they continue to do that, we'll award a touchdown for, yada, yada, yada. Right. Like,
yeah, keep doing it.
At this point,
they're going to score no matter what. You might as well have fun with it.
Right. They're going to tush push this thing a couple of times and try and move it, all of a foot. Right. Like, you have a whole lot to gain and not really anything to lose at that point. So, might as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was a interesting. Look, that game was close, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Like that was wild. I was half paying attention to that game. I was trying to get a few things done around the house, but that game was close, and then I looked up and it was a 20-point game, and I was like, "What happened?"
Right.
That was wild. the Eagles put up 55 in a conference championship against a team that gives up points, right? But like to put up 55 in a conference championship, you got to feel pretty darn good about, where you're at heading into the biggest game of the season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot to that, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this ultimately plays out. Yeah, can the Eagles keep that? Kind of keep that going, right? And seemingly the secret weapon there is just Saquon seemingly breaking a 60 or 70-yard touchdown run every single game this season. Like, it doesn't seem to matter who the opponent is or whatever. Like, seemingly just finds a seam and just breaks one on a long one, and it really is pretty spectacular at this point.
It's very remarkable how much of a renaissance his career has had now that he's gotten out of New York.
Right.
Because I think all of us would have agreed that he was a really, really talented running back, and probably the best reason why New York was competitive all those years that he was there, because clearly they're not once he's gone, right? Daniel Jones maybe gets exposed for who he is after losing that security blanket. But it is nice to see a good player in a good system. And holy cow, like, it is. How do you defend against the guy breaking off a 60-yarder? Like,
Yeah, play
really gonna have
better
to
defense
play.
in the trenches.
Yeah, well, you got to be on your keys better, right? Like, as a defense, you have to know what's coming. Like, look, these two teams, there will be no stone unturned over the next 2 weeks about these two teams' offenses, about plays they ran in college. Like, these teams will go through the craziest analysis you'll ever expect, and it's whatever team. Realistically, what it boils down to is whatever team doesn't make the biggest mistake, right? Like, if you can avoid making the biggest mistake, you've pretty much guaranteed your spot. You've given yourself a chance to win the game. You just can't make the biggest mistake. There's going to be mistakes made, but you cannot make the biggest mistake. And if your team doesn't make the biggest, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see, right? And we'll get into a lot more of that as as this unfolds and as we start kind of really breaking that down next week. Any other thoughts you want to chat about on championship week?
No, I'm done with that. We can get into the coaching carousel and some of the fun stuff that's been happening there. We didn't really talk too much ahead of time about this, but just the three names that I think stand out to me, and I think they're the three biggest ones so far. Obviously, the Cowboys have a new coach, right? Brian Schottenheimer, the career assistant, right?
Right.
So once again, Jerry Jones maybe doesn't hire the best coach, but he hires the coach that I don't think offers a path of resistance to him, right? Bill Belichick doesn't work in Dallas with Jerry Jones as the owner, right? Because from an outside perspective, Jerry Jones has to be the smartest person in the room, and he needs a yes man in that job. And it's very helpful to have someone who's in your corner already to hire in that. So, I think Brian Schottenheimer going to the Cowboys is very interesting. The one that I'm most curious about, and I think has the best potential, is Pete Carroll in Las Vegas.
Right.
Like, I'm so curious about that. Like, Pete Carroll's maybe got, I mean, the guy seems like he's ageless, right? But he's up there in age. He maybe 5 years, which is enough, right? That's enough. Basically, the shelf life of an NFL head coach these days is about 5 years.
If even that,
if you're lucky. Yeah.
Seems to be closer to 2 or 3.
Yeah, if you're lucky. But that one, I'm a little, as a Broncos fan, I'm a little concerned about that one. Like, one was a little concerning. It's like, oh, they couldn't have gone after somebody who I like. Look, we don't have very many guaranteed wins in our division anymore. In fact, I don't think we have guaranteed wins in
No.
our division anymore.
No, is there a
The Broncos used to be the guaranteed win in the division. But no, I don't think there is. With this coaching hire, I don't think there is.
Is there a division in the NFL right now that has that has a better coaching head coach like all around? Like you look at the AFC West, right? Andy Reid's resume stacks up amongst itself. One of the very few coaches over 300 wins, multiple Super Bowl titles, multiple conference championship appearances. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl, multiple deep playoff runs,
lots of success. Yeah.
Yes, lots of success. Jim Harbaugh has been to the conference championships, been to a Super Bowl, has won a national championship at the college level, has a lot of success behind him as well. And Pete Carroll, another guy that has a lot of success at both the college level and has won a Super Bowl and been to multiple Super Bowls and been to multiple conference championship games and has a ton of success throughout Seattle, right? Like this is I can't think of another division that has that much firepower at the head coaching position.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go through and look right now, and there's certainly not the pedigree, right? There's certainly not the pedigree that there is in the AFC West. I think if you put the AFC West coaches above, stacked up with their wins and combined Super Bowl appearances, combined Super Bowl wins, and even the success in college for Harbaugh and for Pete Carroll, it doesn't. I don't think there's a better division. I think there's a case in the NFC West, but really not, since Pete Carroll left the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, right? Like, let's just explore there, right? So you've got Mike McDonald in Seattle, you've got Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, Sean McVay,
who's been good but hasn't won a Super Bowl,
right? Sean McVay in Los Angeles, who has one Super Bowl win and a couple of appearances, and really a great mind there, right? And then you've got Gannon down in Arizona that hasn't had a lot of success since he's been head coach.
So throw the NFC West out, because that's basically just McVay and Shanahan kind of carrying the torch there. But even that, I think them combined doesn't add up to Andy Reid, right? And granted, Andy Reid's been around it for a long time. The age is obviously a thing, but right, for the AFC West, they're older guys, but
right. You look at
the NFC South has
that's
new coaches in a couple different spots. Like,
right, you have
actually all of those teams have a new coach in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, Raheem Morris, newer coach, Todd Bowles. Certainly has some experience at the head coaching position with the Jets, and then now with Tampa Bay. But the last time they made a Super Bowl run in Tampa, it was Arians, Bruce Arians. That was the coach there. Who else? The Saints.
Saints are looking for a coach.
Yep, and
Panthers
Carolina
haven't been able to hold on to one.
Yeah, Carolina's been through a ton of coaches in the last few years.
Yeah.
So they seemingly have made a stance to stick with the same guy for 2 seasons now. So, there's that.
Chicago needs a new coach. Detroit's got Dan Campbell. While fun, hasn't really won the big one yet, right?
Right. Hasn't made it.
Is winning, but hasn't gotten to the big one. LaFleur in Green Bay had success, right? But it's kind of up and down.
Right, and hasn't been to the big one yet.
And then it's Kevin O'Connell, correct, in Minnesota.
Yep.
He's new, right? New, but hasn't been there.
Right. It's a very successful season, very down season, very successful season, right? Like there's a whole lot of kind of up and down there. And Ben Johnson, brand new, right? Like former defensive or offensive coordinator for that. So I'm trying to think
Cowboys, new head coach. Giants, Dable is probably out within the first 6 weeks next year, right? Like,
Yeah, I
if
mean
they
they've got to do
don't get off
something,
to a good start.
but Dable certainly hasn't been the answer there.
Yeah,
The Commanders are an upstart,
Sirianni's decent, right?
right?
But yeah,
Been to 2 Super Bowls now. Hasn't
yep.
won one, but a ton of success there. And Dan Quinn, has been to a Super Bowl before, had that infamous 28-3 debacle, and
Yep.
now
And
we
then
know
just
what.
got to a conference championship game. So,
Right,
like, good, but still.
right, like not quite there. And then, so the NFC, I don't think has anything that stacks up at that point, right? Like the AFC, we've looked at some of that. Like even if you want to start looking at like the AFC North, right? Like
That was what I was going to say might be the closest to compare to the AFC West.
right, Harbaugh's won one, Tomlin's won one, Stefanski. I don't know that you can call that any success there, right? What, one playoff win in his tenure, and has
Yeah, and yes. And I
and
don't know
then
that that's been Stefanski's fault, but that's the hand he's dealt.
you have Zach Taylor, who's been to the Super Bowl, but again, right, like
Yeah.
yeah, kind of up and down, right? A few playoff misses as well along the way there, right? So the AFC North, I don't think stacks up at that point. The AFC South,
Brutal.
yeah,
New coach in Jacksonville.
right,
New coach last year in Tennessee, correct?
yeah. They're coming into a second year.
And then
D'Amico
Indianapolis has
Ryans
not
and
been good.
yeah, Steichen's been there for a couple of years, and they've had trouble, even reaching the playoffs.
Yeah.
Houston's made it there a couple of years now with D'Amico Ryans, but they're
He's
needing to
only
make
in
that
his
next
second year.
right, and they'll need to take that next step shortly to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like the Texans have a very hard time getting past the divisional round there. So the AFC South, nope, doesn't stack up. AFC East, Mike McDonald hasn't really had that. Has had flashes, but the team seems to fade down the stretch there, and hadn't really made a run there.
Mike McDaniels.
I'm sorry, who did I say?
McDonald. And
Okay, yep.
Now I want a Big Mac.
You're welcome. So Mike McDaniel, my apologies. Coming into, I believe this will be like his third year, fourth year type of thing.
Fourth year, I think. Yeah.
Right. The Patriots are on to their
third coach in 3 years.
Third coach in 3 years. And Vrabel's been good in Tennessee, right? But again, right, like not the same kind of success as those other guys. The Jets, well, the Jets just hired Aaron Glenn. So
they're
new
on their
coach.
third coach in like 3 years too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're on. Yes. Well, no, Saleh was there for a little. Well, no, because I guess you had Saleh and then you had an interim, and now you've got that. So yes, 3 coaches in one full year.
Yeah.
And who else in the
McDermott, who, as we just got done talking about,
right, has
Josh Allen has also been make this.
Just can't seem to get over the hump.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's pretty definitive at that point that there's that seems to be the kind of the hardest thing there. And not only that, you look at the fact of so many of these other franchises are still looking for their franchise quarterback. 3 of the 4 AFC West teams seem to have that figured out.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if Las Vegas takes a stab at a franchise type quarterback here in this draft.
Right.
I think they're pretty much all but guaranteed to.
Yep. I think you're right. I think we'll see them really try and shoot their shot there. So it'll be interesting to see, right? There's still a few coaching, still a few coaching vacancies out there. Although what was really, really interesting was the was kind of that turmoil that happened in Jacksonville. Did you happen to pay attention to that one?
I did not.
Okay, so it was very interesting, right? They dismissed Doug Peterson, retained Trent Baalke, right?
Yes.
As the GM, and they were going to, rock and roll it that way, and he was going to get a chance to hire yet again another coach into that. They seem to be going in this coaching search, and then all of a sudden Trent Baalke's dismissed, which
okay, now that you mention it, yeah, that does.
Which
I do recall that being a head scratcher when I saw that news come across.
Which is very interesting because didn't see anything specifically reported on this or things like that, but seems like for them to retain and then dismiss means that the guy that they wanted for the coaching job may have had some different philosophies there. And then not long after, we see Liam Cohen agree that he's going to stay with Tampa Bay and all of that. And then very shortly after that announcement, it's announced that he's the new head coach of the Jaguars. Right. And so I did see some interesting very interesting reports come out about the timeline on Liam Cohen and the agreeing to come back, what transpired after that in the facility, and then the news breaking that he was announced as the next head coach of the Jaguars. So not necessarily probably the best way to start off a coaching change into an organization that has had just a ton of dysfunction or seemingly had a ton of dysfunction from the outside looking in over the last few years.
And what's brutal about it is they seem to have pieces in place, right? Like that roster construct is not terrible. You got a Trevor Lawrence, you've got shoot.
I mean, you've got a stacked wide receiving core with Kirk and good. Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram and
your running back room when healthy, right? That's been the bugaboo there is to keep them healthy.
Right.
But like that roster should be a lot better than it has been. And I don't know. I mean, I think that speaks to kind of the level of dysfunctionality in that whole organization.
Right.
And look, Trevor Lawrence got hurt last year. Christian Kirk ended the season on IR. Gabe Davis ended the season on IR. They probably need some help on the line. The defense could probably use some paying attention to. But like that offense should be able to outscore anybody.
Well, they've got a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball too that they should be fairly good, but like it just has not seemingly kind of panned out there. So it'll be very interesting to see how that comes to play and what they do over the next season here.
Yeah, they'll be an interesting team. I think they'll be a trendy team for a lot of people that want to pick a dark horse.
Right. So, yeah, we'll see how this thing ultimately comes to play there. So, but any other thoughts on the coaching carousel?
No. The only two things I saw was that Cliff Kingsbury says he's not going to go to New Orleans.
Right.
And McCarthy's going to sit this year out. He probably makes some decent TV money doing a Sunday show, and he'll try to jump back in the coaching game in 2026.
Yeah, I could see that. This is again very interesting, right? Like that New Orleans is one of the jobs that I think is going to be a very hard sell, right? Like
they're so strapped for cash right now.
Like you really don't have any cap flexibility. You don't have the draft capital to go out and really make an overhaul there. You've got a team aging rather quickly and contracts that you just can't seemingly get rid of. And
it is a fool's errand to become coach. It's going to take somebody who just wants to be an NFL head coach to do it. Right. Cliff Kingsbury has already been there, done that. He doesn't need his opportunity. He'll get another opportunity, I think, to be an NFL head coach. It's going to take somebody who wants to be an NFL head coach for the sake of being an NFL head coach, because you're taking that job to get fired in 3 years.
Yeah, if
Like
you
that's the reality of it, right?
yeah, if you even last that long. So
right. You have to hope that the organization does a good enough job of protecting you as the coach and letting people know, hey, look, this is not their fault. This is our fault, which I don't know of any billionaire that's willing to say that.
or
But
GM, because at that point, like,
right.
Yeah.
It is not our doing here, but this is the hand that we're dealt.
Right.
And I don't know. I think the fans down there in New Orleans know that, but still, man, it sucks to go watch a team lose, 8 times a year.
Right. Well, and there is a lot of that it will, right? Like the NFL, we've seen this become such a deal where you can turn around an organization quickly, right? If you do it strategically, like you can turn around an organization quickly, right? Like we saw that happen a couple seasons ago with the Texans, right? Like they'd had a couple of down years. They were drafting number 2 overall with their pick, and they had firmly earned that pick to go out and then turn around and win the division, win the and be a playoff team the next year, right? Saw that happen again this year, right? Washington got to earn their pick at number 2, turned it around within a year, made it to a conference championship game, right? And I'm sure that I can find more examples, looking back further, but just off of the Jacksonville did it not that long ago in Trevor Lawrence's second season, where they were picking back to back, first overall
Cincinnati.
picks. Cincinnati did that with
Joe Burrow. So really what it boils down to, the print is get a quarterback that's punching above their weight, right? And then you have to have key pieces elsewhere that you've spent the money that you would spend on a superstar quarterback, and be able to do it. And Derek, you've said it on this show a ton of times. There's a magic number that NFL teams simply they can't go above a certain percentage of their contract money to one player, and it doesn't work, right?
And Patrick Mahomes has blown up that theory.
And yet the Chiefs, this team of destiny, has completely wrecked that rule. But I think there is an exception to every rule, and I think that's the only exception to the rule.
Fair enough. Like that's the but that was kind of the hard and fast deal that you couldn't have you really couldn't have a quarterback that had over I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was like 13% and some change there until Patrick Mahomes did it, right? And so but nowadays that that does not seem to matter near as much, because that has certainly changed certainly changed that. Although there does go to a lot of that because of the simple fact that to win the Super Bowl, it really takes the best team and the most complete team to, one, make it through the regular season, another to survive the playoffs, and then win on the biggest stage there. And it's hard to do that if you've got so much of the cap tied up in one player, and you have to sacrifice at talented other positions to do it. Like you really do need young guys, rookies stepping up, guys on their rookie deals stepping up and playing above their weight class, for sure.
And we've kind of seen that with Kansas City the last couple of years, right? Or not, maybe not so much young guys, but guys looking for a second chance, right? I think of like a Juju Smith-Schuster who played pretty well for Kansas City when they won a couple years back. You've got Xavier Worthy, right? He's a young guy, but he is playing probably above where you would expect a rookie to be. I think what Kansas City doing, and again, I said this earlier, how fortunate we are to be football fans at this time. What they're doing is incredible, and I know that their fan base can be insufferable. Anybody who's winning's fan base can be insufferable. And look, I'm a Broncos fan through and through. It hurts to see Kansas City, a team in our division that honestly used to be the punching bag of the division for a long time. Basically, my entire youth, they were the punching bag of the division. And to see them have this sustained success has been just rough. But as a fan of the sport and as just somebody who Kevin kind of said it a few weeks back, to be able to witness history like this, like, yeah, it sucks that it's a team that we really don't like in our fandom, but it's really, really cool to see something that's never been done before and the way that they're going about doing it.
Right. And by the way, I found the number. It was 12.61% prior to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, so just over 12.5%.
Right, and that was
one player.
That was Tom Brady in 2020.
Yeah.
Right,
with Tampa, right?
Correct. And then, before that, Peyton had managed to get it done with a 12.21, and Brady had managed to get it done with the 12.42. But those were the outliers there, right?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes' last 2 seasons has had roughly around a 17% cap hit, both of those years, right? Prior to that, prior to Mahomes, take Mahomes out of the equation, and then prior to that, Brady and Manning type of deal, it took all the way back until like Steve Young, when the salary cap was first introduced in '93 type of thing, where it was a percentage around 13%, and that team won the Super Bowl on that, right?
Yeah.
Like the Mahomes and the Chiefs have broken that model there, where you can have a guy eating up that much cap and still win. But for the most part, in order to get there, it takes guys on a lot of rookie deals, low contract deals, right? Like you look at last year, San Francisco, right? Brock Purdy, less than 0.5% of the cap hit on his salary. Jalen Hurts the year before that, less than 1% of a cap hit on that. Burrow the year before that was less than 5%. Mahomes the year that he lost to Brady was a 2.7%. And the year prior to that, 2.3%. Like there's a lot to that it oftentimes does come down to those salary caps just not being a big percentage of that, and it's just not the case with the Chiefs, it seems.
No, it's wild. It is wild what they're doing.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then a couple of comments here. Scott saying that they don't really care about the Pro Bowl or any All-Star games. They're for casual fans plus kids. I can understand that thought and sentiment. I do like seeing some of the skills competitions.
It is cool to see freak athletes do freak athlete things, right?
Right.
Like that's pretty fun.
Like that's what I like seeing on some of these things, is just seeing these right, like looking at like the looking at any of the all-star type of deals. I don't watch the Major League Baseball all-star game, right? Like at all. Firmly never, hasn't been on the TV in years. However, I will tune in and watch the home run derby every so often.
Right? Like, yeah, that's fun.
I want to see these dudes just hammer 400 or 500 foot home runs and just bash the ever living daylights out of these balls, right? The NBA. I can't remember the last time I watched an NBA All-Star game. I tune into the dunk contest every so often to see these dudes pull these dunks and jump out of the gym, because it's just amazing to see, right? Like I do like watching the NFL skills competition. Hockey, I know you watch the hockey a lot more than I do, so I'll save that space for you on that one.
I do. I watched the NHL All-Star game, but the skills competition is also pretty cool. Like it's very fun. So look, the Pro Bowl was dying, right? There were so many people that were like, look, I just got done playing a long season, right? My body hurts.
I no longer get the trip to Honolulu for free.
Yeah. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go bash my head in again for what, right? So it needed to change. I'm glad that the NFL is trying something different. I think you can recognize good players and still give them the recognition of being a Pro Bowler. But like, let's be honest, it is, Scott, I think you're right. It's for casual fans and for kids. Because in what world is Russell Wilson a Pro Bowl in the
or Drake May
common sense term, right? In the accepted sense term, in what world is Drake May a Pro Bowl quarterback, right?
Right.
They're not. But Drake May's enough of a name, and there's enough kids out there that know who Drake May is, right? Because of what he did in college. That I think it allows the NFL to sell to try and grab a different fan base. And I think that's what the NFL needed to do. So I applaud them for trying something different and trying to figure out this space away from an actual football game. But I don't even know when the Pro Bowl is. What is it? Is it Sunday?
Yeah,
I'm not watching it.
It's this week. Yeah.
I'm not watching it.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the one thing too that's very different about the Pro Bowl is it's done at the end of the season, whereas every other All-Star
in the middle. No.
Yeah, like middle to 3/4 of the way through, right? Like you very firmly have a feel for the season, all of that, but these guys aren't going out and doing it where the in the middle of the season in the NFL, it really is at the end of the year. So I think some of that also played into some of these guys not wanting to. The season's done, my locker's cleaned out. Like I want to go on vacation with the family, right? Like I really want to start my off season here, and
and it is a grind for these guys, man. Is it a grind for them? Like I know that we think like, oh, how hard is it to be a professional athlete? Like it's
hard,
difficult. It's difficult to keep your body up and make sure that you're staying in tip-top shape because you could lose your job tomorrow. Like think about how intense it would be if you showed up to work tomorrow and they were like, hey, see that guy, see Jim back there? You mess up today, Jim's taking your job and you're going to lose out on a couple $100,000. Okay. Don't mess up. Good luck. Like,
right.
All right. I'm going to be the best I can be. And I'm going to be thinking about it constantly because I don't want Jim to take a couple $100,000 from me.
Right. Well, and you think about the guys that are in that position, they were most likely the very best on their high school team.
Yeah.
They were probably the best on their college team. And now they're in a very, very small percentage of human beings that are able to do
basically an all-star game every time they go out there, right? Like,
right. So
that's what it is. So
absolutely. All righty. And then Jordan saying sup GOBs. Not much. We are rocking and rolling through the Tuesday. And then Jordan asking, do you think Mahomes gets bored of winning all the time and eventually goes to play baseball like MJ? No.
No,
I don't. I think Mahomes is has his eyes firmly set on trying to chase Brady at this point.
Oh yeah.
And I think it would take something like
chase and pass.
Right. So I don't think we see him go play baseball.
That's a funny thought though.
It is a good one, right? Jordan also asking the Pro Bowl 3-on-3 basketball tourney would be cool.
That would be interesting. That actually would be interesting because there's, again, freak athletes doing freak athlete things is always fun to watch. Hell, if you watch WWE, why are you watching WWE? One, the storylines are fun, right? But it's freak athletes doing freak athlete stuff.
Right. That's funny. Jordan saying, "Dang, that might be Josh Lamar's only shot." LOA. If Mahomes goes plays baseball.
Mahomes goes, yeah.
Yeah. But interesting enough on the basketball side of thing, right? Because there was that whole debate where you had all these NBA guys and NFL guys just chirping back and forth at each other earlier that, you could take all these NBA guys and put them in the NFL and they'd go, or you could take all these NFL guys and put them in the NBA and they'd be good to go. And
it really stemmed from that string of basketball playing tight ends, right? Those former basketball power forwards that then became just awesome tight ends in the NFL, right?
Or even defensive ends. Like that, seemed like the power forwards went to either be tight ends or defensive ends, right? You think of the Julius Peppers back in the day. But yeah, like it is interesting to see how much.
And then there was the whole thing with LeBron, right? Who was like, who was was he a good high school football player, or was he just bigger than everybody else on the field? I don't know.
Right. But was he bigger than everybody else on the field and could run faster than just about anybody else on the field?
Right.
Yeah. Two things that certainly separate that out at that level.
Yeah. But was a high school football player nonetheless, right? And and did that weird little stunt thing that he did a few years back where he was trying out or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Right. Randy Moss was very good. Very good. Yeah. Randy Moss probably just one of the best like overall athletes that we've probably seen, regardless of the sport. So, but I was
next one.
Yeah, I was watching a thing. Real quick before we get to the next one, I was watching this thing where Jason Williams, right, NBA point guard, that was a pretty good NBA point guard for a lot of years, was high school teammates with Randy Moss, and was kind of talking that up and. All of that, found that on a YouTube clip. So interesting if you happen to see it, give it a watch. It was pretty interesting to watch him talk about that. So anyway, Jordan saying, or maybe a Pro Bowl academic decathlon could be fun. Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know what goes into an academic decathlon, but I think the Pro Bowl spelling bee would be fun.
Oh, that could be interesting. Yeah.
And perhaps a Pro Bowl quiz bowl, or like a are you smarter than a fifth grader situation. That Travis Kelce, I think, already hosts, right?
I think we did see that one there. Right. I'm just trying to pull up and see how
what's in an academic decathlon.
I didn't think that we'd be going down this road today, but we're gonna pull it up and see if I can figure that out.
Why not? Thanks, Jordan. I was a good student. I just wasn't smart enough to make it onto the academic decathlon team at my high school, which I don't think my high school had, which is probably why I was a good student, because you're judged only on your peers.
Okay. So I like that. It's like the contest at the end of Billy Madison. When he sat there and he said the academic decathlon, like it made me think of that scene out of Old School where you have Will Ferrell doing the debate thing and all of that.
Yeah.
And he's like, what happened? But anyway, so I've got some information here, right? So an academic decathlon is a team competition where folks match their intellects against another team, and they are tested in 10 categories with art, economics, essay, interview, language and literature, mathematics, music, science, social studies, and speech.
So I'm on board with that, but I think instead of art, you do something like a memory contest, right? And let's get those quarterbacks out there, give them just a jumbled mess, and then they have to recite it back. And
a Sean Payton play call.
Whoever gets the furthest on the jumbled mess play call gets the point for their team.
Right.
I think that, Jordan, I think you're onto something here. That actually would be fun.
Right. And you do it where it's a little bit more geared towards some of the football side of things, right? Because that'll be, but no, you're right. Like, and that could be very interesting, right? Because I sit there and I hear all of the, like, Drew Brees came out, was talking about Sean Payton's playbook and how the plays came in. And it was this entire thing where it's this 25 word just, deal that he's got to run through to get the play call in and all that. And it was really interesting when he was talking about when they'd also call in the audibles. So he'd run through the whole thing. Hey, here's the kill.
Give the whole play.
Yeah.
Right. And then, hey, if we kill it, here's what we're going to. here's the second play call that I need you all to remember.
Right?
Did you see the bit of Jameis on Jason Kelsey's new show? Did you see that?
I did not. No, let me know.
It was quite good. When he's talking about his, so it's Jameis Winston. I didn't watch the episode. I just saw the clip. It's Jameis Winston, Ryan Clark, and Jim Gaffigan are the guests on Jason Kelsey's show. Jim Gaffigan, the comedian. But Ryan Clark brings it up that Jameis Winston, he says, one of Jameis's teammates said, like, when Jameis is telling us to play in the huddle, it's like he's telling us a secret. And so Jameis goes and does how he calls a play. It's very funny. I encourage you to see it. I'm not going to do it justice, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay, I actually did see a whole thing where it pulls up there by just searching that, and I think I know what's on my watch list now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I haven't seen much of Jason Kelsey's show. Actually, I've seen very little of it, but I hope he does well because I think he's a fantastic, and I hope the show does well. It's not something that I've made as part of my appointment viewing. It's on rather late, and by the time it's on, I'm trying to get myself into bed. But I might try to go search it out on ESPN later.
Well, it looks like you could probably catch that whole thing on the YouTubes.
Perfect.
So, just a quick search off of those names you provided and popped right up.
Yeah.
So, but and then Jordan saying, "Hey, all of these guys went to college. Might be an interesting contest." I like it. I think
did they all go to college though, Jordan, or were they enrolled in college?
You had to have a GPA to pass some of those things.
Sure you did.
You did. Anyway, but no, I think Jordan's onto something there, right? I think that could be a lot of fun where you have some of those things and set it up there, and you tweak it just a little bit to make it a little more entertaining as well.
Yeah.
I think that could be a lot of fun. But it is interesting to listen to some of these guys talk and kind of share ideas on that. So it's always a good time. Well, that kind of takes us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers or listeners?
If you are a sicko, and if you're watching this podcast on the Tuesday after the conference championship game on the essential bye week before we get to Super Bowl game week, if you're watching this podcast live on the Tuesday or listening to it when it posts, you can classify yourself as a sicko, and that's okay. Embrace it. That's fun. But if you happen to be a
all
sicko,
degenerates here, it's okay.
Yeah. And you need some football in your life during this downtime, well, are you in luck? The East-West Shrine game takes place January 30th.
That'd be Thursday for everybody wondering.
That is Thursday. Yeah, January 30th. The Senior Bowl is on Saturday, February 1st. And if watching football games of potential draft picks or the next generation of NFL players doesn't get you going enough, you can watch live practice Wednesday and Thursday, the 29th and 30th of the Senior Bowl, if you want to watch some live practice. So you can start doing your early scout for your draft for next year. In your dynasty rookie drafts, you can start doing your early scout.
Right. Well, and there's something to that, right? And actually, I really like this comment. Jordan saying, "Haha, we're certifiable."
We are.
So there is something to that, right? Like when watching the Shrine Bowl and watching the Senior Bowl, like there's been a few guys that you've been able to really kind of see show up and show out during the Senior Bowl that they don't necessarily have that incredible draft stock coming into it. However, we see these guys really show up in the NFL in the next season, right? Like think back to 2 years ago, Puka Nacua absolutely showed out during the Senior Bowl and was a top 10 wide receiver that season. in his rookie year, right?
Right.
Lad McConkey this last year absolutely showed out, top 15 wide receiver. So there are some of that there is, there's worth watching on that, especially if you're looking to get an edge.
Yeah, my favorite phrase that you'll hear a lot if you watch these practices is, "Oh, that's a guy that's made himself some money this week." Like you'll hear them say that a lot.
Right. Right. Yeah. So always a good time and always, fun watching that. So, still some football, even though there's not, the real, professional games lining up there. We'll get to see some of that Pro Bowl side of things and some skill competitions and a flag football game. But, that's kind of where that is. So, you're going to get to start seeing here too with some of the spring football start taking place and shaping up here shortly as well.
Because it's never ending.
Right. I mean, we've still got a month and a half at that point, 2 months, but
Before you know
it's
it,
on the way.
the underwear Olympics time, and then we're in draft season.
Absolutely. So everything right around the corner, and not long after we get through the combine and we'll get to have our NFL, draft day spectacular for that first round, and always a good time there. And then we on to breaking down players. So awesome. Well, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
I do not. I hope you join us next week. We'll get into talking about the game a little bit more, and somehow, Derek, you and I have talked for an hour with no game on the horizon.
Right. Well, the and next week too will be a fun one, right? Because we'll go through some of our prop game and all of that we like playing here for the big game coming up. So that is always a really fun episode. So everybody tune in, chime in, and we'll see you then. But that is going to do it for us tonight. Make sure that you're heading over to all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those places at Good Old Boys FF. Click that follow, click that subscribe, like button, all those things. Best place though to support the independent podcast. Head over to YouTube, click that subscribe and hit that like button. Appreciate everybody tuning in, the comments and the questions, all of that. Hope everybody has a good one. He's Alex. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.